Let's begin this Intonjane process with an explanation or guiding, or I don't know where to, understanding, getting us all on the same page on what Intonjane is. Yeah. I'm sure you would have over the years, if you care for culture, you care for Nguni culture, maybe you live in South Africa, you would have heard of ulwaluko, which is the male initiation process, the rite of passage, the coming of age ceremony for Xhosa boys, and it's done when they're 18, but it wasn't always at 18. But by law now, you can only do it after a boy has turned 18. So generally, most of them do it after they finish matric, because matric is done. Usually, people get to matric at around 18 years old. But the process is a coming of age process, and it is undertaken to usher boys from boyhood into manhood. They are supposed to go to the bush, they're supposed to live in a boma, they're supposed to have an aide, and they're supposed to be in that space with other boys, learning how to be men and being groomed into being men, wise men as well. And so I'm sure you would know about this process, but you wouldn't know about a process called Intonjane. There's a very good chance you don't know about a process called Intonjane. Intonjane is a female equivalent of the male process. You wouldn't have heard about it, or there's a very good chance that you haven't heard about it, because it has suffered an erasure that I argue was caused, and actually it's not just my argument, it is the fact of life, that the erasure was caused by a successful colonial project and a successful missionary project that saw the Intonjane disappear almost into obscurity, even as other families and clans within the Xhosa nation still go through or take their girl children through the Intonjane process. So kwaXhosa, in the ulwaluko process, boys go to the bush, they stay bomeni, and they stay there now for about a month. Back in the day, before, the colonialism and capitalism took a stronghold on the Xhosa culture and Xhosa people, they used to stay for about 3 months. And in that process, then they are taught how to be men. In the Intonjane process, it's fundamentally the same. The principles remain, except that in the Intonjane process, the girl goes through seclusion or undergoes seclusion in the homestead, so in their home. So they are secluded in a particular house within the homestead, and they sit behind a curtain made of reed mats called umkhosane. And they are secluded there now for about a month, and they are then guided through the process. So the point of that process is to take a girl who's now, from girlhood, who's now ready to be a woman. And so when you think about the Zulu people, you would equate it to something like umhlonyane. If you think about, I think it's the Venda people, it's something called the Tsonga people. I think it's called, is it Domba, or is it called, or is the other one? But there's something, all Nguni cultures generally have a process of coming of age. It's just that the Xhosa one has kind of suffered some erasure. In the same way that boys are then guided and taught on how to be men when they're in the bush, the girl children are also taught how to be men. In the same way that people are not meant to see Xhosa initiates, male initiates, when they are in the bush. Only certain people, like the aides and sometimes young girl children who are bringing them food, only they're allowed to see this boy in the bush. It's the same with the girl child who is secluded within the homestead, within the yard. Nobody can see them besides their aid. I think then it becomes a bit, the fundamental difference in terms of movement is that the boy children have the field, they have the bush, they have, the rivers and whatnot that they can explore and exist in those spaces freely, whereas the girl is confined to the house, the single house that they are secluded in. And even in that single house that they are secluded in, they are confined to that little corner that is created for them because nobody can see them. And so the entire day, they are shut off in that house, and then they can only go outside at night when it's dark under the cover of darkness, in order to maybe go and relieve themselves and go to the bathroom or whatever the case may be. In the same way that there are certain foods that can be and can't be eaten by Xhosa initiates, male initiates, it is the same with female initiates as well. So there are certain foods that are eaten when she goes in. There are certain things that she can eat from, and things that she can't eat from in terms of, spoons, dishes and things like that. In the same way that happens with the Xhosa male initiates. So, and in the same way that the male initiates are given guidance, the same way with the female initiates. But I think what is the fundamental difference is the location, right, of these two things, right? And so, and some of the ceremony, because with the girl initiates, with the Intonjane, there is a process in the middle where it's called umshado, so the wedding. And in that wedding, then they are fundamentally it's a celebration as if it's a wedding day for the girl, because the idea is that they are grown enough now to be able to be taken on by a husband, and so this is an opportunity to then show that they are marriageable and they are of marriageable stock. They've been trained well to be good wives, and so then there's this marriage ceremony that happens in between. So the fundamentals are the same, right? The fundamentals are the same across these two practices, but then there are supposed difference in certain practices and in certain processes, but the fundamentals remain. This is about a coming of age. It's about being marriageable. It's about showing the community that we now have a marriageable man, we now have a marriageable woman within this family, and it is a birthright that every boy and girl child should be going through. And so the erasure of this process and this ritual and this coming of age ceremony of this birthright is, for me, the Intonjane process, the erasure of Intonjane is for me an unspoken crime of the success of the missionary project, right? It's a crime against the culture of amaXhosa and the Xhosa nation fundamentally. And I think for me, this erasure has been successful for the Intonjane process because the colonial project and the missionary project are projects that at their core fundamentally saw and transplanted the idea that women are subjects of men in the community, in the family, in the homestead. You will see even in the fact that women before colonialism, before the missionary project was successful, women were actually responsible for agriculture within the home. They were responsible for agriculture within the ecosystem, and the power of being responsible for agriculture is power that allows you to speak, allows you to lead, allows you to have a say in conversations and processes in terms of the development and the sustainability of the home and the community. And so with the missionary project recognizing, or at least having, the idea of women as subjects of, then there was a stripping of any elements that make important the role of a woman. And so the Intonjane process running in parallel with the male process of ulwaluko then speaks to that duality of energies within the home and within the community and within the family that does not recognize a subjugation and a making less of a particular role within the home. I like to draw the parallels between these two processes because it tells you that, you know, men in those times, men were expected to go to war, men were expected to go and hunt, men were expected to understand and to master the bush, the rivers, you know, those kinds of things. They were expected to master those things in order to be able to support the family in that way and to grow the family in that way and to grow the community in that way. And so their process was then placed within the bush. But with men being outside, men being at war, men out hunting, then that leaves a vacuum or a space within the home that needs to be filled and held by somebody, and that's where the woman's role becomes critical. Because in the absence of the man, not because he's gone and run off and he's a deadbeat, no, not what we have now, but in the absence of a man because he's doing other work outside of the home, then you need somebody to hold the space, and then that becomes the function of the woman. And that then makes it so that when a woman or a young woman is being ushered into womanhood and being readied for being for marriage, or is being shown to the world as one that is ready for the marriage, it makes sense then that they would be located within the home because their function is to hold up the home. And it's not a lesser function. And I know with feminism and all of and you know empowerment, we want to make it seem as if it's a lesser function. It is not a lesser function because it exists within the duality of male and female. And that does not mean that there would never be a point where a man would be able to hold the space of a female in the home, in the household, in the same way that a female would be able to hold the space of a man externally. But we are speaking about the very basic understanding of the duality of energies and how these two energies, these masculine and these female energies, then coexist in order to hold up the home and the family and the community, right? And so that is why then this female process and this female coming of age process is then located within the homestead. My particular Intonjane, coincidentally or probably not, actually is meant to occur during the time when a cousin of mine who is a male is going through his ulwaluko process. And so it then speaks directly, you know, to this elevation and this amplification of this idea of dual energies within the home, because he's also going to be doing it in the same family, in the same community. And so while I'm secluded, he'll be secluded as well. But while I'm secluded in the homestead, he'll be secluded in the bush. And that just speaks to the duality and the necessity of the male and the female energy, the masculine and the feminine energy. And it speaks to the equitable nature, not the equality, but the equitable nature of these two energies that must exist within the home in order to build and strengthen this home, right? To say, no matter, like, we can fight to be equal, but it is really, we can't all do all the same things all at the same time, right? When one is pushing, the other needs to be pulling, or when the other is pulling, the other needs to be pushing. When one is taking care of, you know, building, the other is taking care of nurturing, right? It is not about, you know, fighting for the same position. At the same time, it's about complementing each other's position in a way that makes sense and does not oppress, it does not subjugate either one of these two elements. And so we'll be having both of our processes at the same time. And I like to see it as that resuscitation of this need for the balancing of feminine and female, of masculine and female energy, right? within the homestead. And so that is what is Intonjane is. There are various elements to it. I mean, it's a ceremonial process, so naturally there will be various elements to it. There's slaughtering of animals for different reasons. KwaXhosa and my family slaughters with, because there could be a sheep or a goat depending on the family. So my family does it with a goat. Then there's a slaughtering of a cow during the whole process of the wedding process. There are songs that can be sang and not sang. When they are sang, they can be sang by certain people, not sang by certain people. There are spaces that can be entered, not entered by men, by women. There is guidance that can only be given by women. There's guidance that sometimes can be given by men. There's power that needs to be managed in terms of who holds power at any given point for certain processes and for certain purposes. There are foods that need to be eaten and not eaten. There's the spiritual element, right? From my side and my purpose of my process, there's a fundamentally spiritual element. Like this whole process is fundamentally spiritual in its existence in my life and in my process, and it is fundamentally spiritual in its purpose once it has been concluded and finalized. And so this series is going to be speaking to that duality, is going to be speaking to showing and documenting and preserving, right? Preserving for future generations, and even my own daughter who has to go through this process at some point, I would hope, what the different elements are, preserving the different elements and the beauty of it all. And so from the next video that I'm going to be posting is the start of the process, and the start of the process starts with consultation. And so the next one will be around, the consultation process. I'm recording this video having gone through the first round of consultations, and so I understand. I already know I already know the drama that comes from that consultation process. But I mean, it's beautiful even in its drama, even in its tears, even in its fights, even in its dissatisfaction and non-satisfaction, because it is a fundamentally spiritual process for me. It is very, very spiritual. And so even the dark times, upon reflection, now that I'm reflecting after the fact of the first consultation process, the dark times are not so dark because they teach about human character and human nature and how we navigate relationships that are both physical in this realm, in this living realm of human beings that have their own relationships, as well as in the spiritual realm and the expectations from the spiritual realm on the physical realm that we are in, as well as expectations of each other as human beings and how we navigate each other's relationships and non-relationships, right? And how do we work together when sometimes we hate each other? How do we work together when we don't know one another sometimes? How do we work together in the ecosystem of a community? Because this is a fundamentally communal process, right? And who are the different stakeholders and players in the ecosystem, and the non-importance of your self-importance in any space, right? Whether it's you who's going through, and because you become, right, I am the subject of this process, but I am the subject of this process only because I have been sent to be a subject of this process. And so I say all of these things on reflection now because I've been to the first iteration of the consultations, and so I know what happens there. Yeah, I did say in the introduction of the series that this is not a if you want entertainment and you want debauchery, it's likely not going to be. But there are some elements of people being silly and wild, and people being unreasonable. And so yeah, we've gone through the first iteration of the consultation processes, and so the next video is going to be around that, because the first step to any of this is about consultation, because the process is a communal process. You don't go through Intonjane wedwa or alone, in the same way that you wouldn't go through ulwaluko wedwa or alone. And it's about the contractual bonds that we have that are made through DNA and our bloodlines, right? And we don't sign on the dotted line, but simply by having that same DNA, there is a certain level of contractual bond that we hold to one another that force us or push us to participate in such processes. And of course, we have the option of not participating, but even that has its own outcomes and ramifications, right? And these contractual bonds exist across time and space, right? So you are contractually bonded even to people who are no longer alive, right? And so even for me, I am undertaking this process because of a contractual bond to a person that we didn't even live in the same timeline, in the same lifetime, right? So I never saw them, I'm only seeing them through dreams. And so yeah, there are elements of that as we exist as human beings and how we navigate that and navigate those spaces. And so yeah, the next video is going to be about that. It's about the consultation, or the first iteration of the consultations and the dynamics that exist with that, and the elements and why these elements exist, and the importance of community and family, because you can't come of age to yourself only or you can't come of age with yourself only. You need to have community, you need to have family, and that comes with its own dynamics. And if you remain interested, yeah, let's meet in the next one. The next one should be a vlog, and so I'll take you with me to the Eastern Cape for our consultations.